Viewers, good evening. The discovery of a cash pile at a judge's residence has ripped the mask of a system rotting in its own privilege. It exposes a double standard so blatant, it defies belief. Just picture an ordinary citizen like you and I, caught with a fraction of that unaccounted cash. The law would pounce like a starved beast. Homes raided at dawn, early morning. Family humiliated, names splashed across headlines as a criminal. We would be hauled before a court, forced to prove innocence while languishing in a cell. The system would grind us down, relentless and unforgiving until justice is extracted, viewers. Now contrast that with a High Court judge. No outrage over the last 10 days, as if this is some kind of a minor clerical error. There is also a proposal to transfer him, something the Supreme Court today has clarified it has discussed yesterday and is yet to take a final decision on. Viewers, the Supreme Court has also said that the Delhi High Court, where Justice Yashwant Verma currently serves, is conducting its own in-house inquiry into the events of March 14, when the fire and the alleged cash haul is said to have happened. That inquiry report, as per the Supreme Court, is expected to be submitted today for further examination and action. But questions still remain, viewers. After all, it's been a week since that fire set in motion the series of events that have led to today. When did this Delhi High Court in-house inquiry begin? When discussing his transfer proposal yesterday, did the Collegium take into consideration the pending Delhi High Court in-house inquiry about him? Hopefully, more answers will be forthcoming once the details of that in-house inquiry are out. But the disparity, viewers, is as stark as it is infuriating. An ordinary citizen faces a legal onslaught where every misstep is a life sentence. Financial ruin, jail time, a shattered reputation, while a judge is handed a golden parachute. The Collegium system, where judges appoint their own, is an elite fraternity, seemingly immune to the rules they enforce on others. A laborer caught taking a bribe to feed his children would be locked away, his pleas drowned out by the red tape of the system, if not prison. Yet a judge with hoard of cash or alleged hoard of cash at home can hold on to his job, his honor intact and pension secure. Viewers, this tells us that the blindfold has fallen from the statue of justice, revealing eyes that glare at the powerless and wink at the privileged. This is why the public's faith is in tatters. They see a widow evicted for unpaid dues while a judge's wealth raises no alarms. They see a young man jailed for stealing bread while the alleged judicial impropriety is to be treated differently. The judiciary demands transparency from everyone. You know, the tax returns, affidavits, endless documentation, paperwork, files, etc., etc. Yet, it wraps itself in a shroud of secrecy, untouchable and almost unanswerable. How can they still preach accountability, viewers? That's the question. And here's the most fundamental question. Under the circumstances, why is this judge's transfer proposal even under consideration when he remains the subject matter of a Delhi High Court in-house inquiry? If a serving judge becomes the subject matter of an in-house inquiry in the High Court, shouldn't a statement have been issued in the interest of transparency? Think about it. And what of the cash itself? How much? Who saw it first? Who was it for? There is still a lot that begs an explanation, and who has proposed this judge's transfer? It's not as if a new PIN code will transform the system, which is being questioned today for not just this development. Viewers, we have another High Court judge who, in a ruling that defies decency and morality, declared that grabbing a woman's breast and untying her pajama strings does not amount to an attempt to rape. Together, these incidents don't just expose a broken system, they reveal a judiciary that's abandoned its soul. Viewers, this is no longer a matter for hushed courtroom whispers or legal circles to debate in isolation. The opaqueness of the judiciary must be dragged into the light of the parliamentary or public scrutiny. an overhaul is not just a suggestion, it's a necessity now. Independent oversight, open appointment processes, and a system to hold judges to the same brutal standard as the citizens they judge are the bare minimum. Justice must not just be done, it should be seen to be done, viewers. The blindfold has gone, but the justice is still not in sight.
एक सामान्य कर्मचारी के घर पे 15 लाख रुपया मिलता है तो उसको जेल भेजते हैं। एक जज के घर पे 15 करोड़ रुपया कैश मिल रहा है, उसको घर वापसी का इनाम दिया जा रहा है। क्या हाईकोर्ट, इलाहाबाद हाईकोर्ट क्या डस्टबिन है, कचरा बिन है?
Normally, no judge keeps cash because his salary is transferred directly to bank. If massive cash recovery is done, then there is a presumption that the judge has been thoroughly corrupt. Supreme Court should scrutinize all his judgments given in Delhi. The judiciary is known in our country to be a corrupt judiciary, inefficient judiciary, incapable judiciary. Only rich people are able to approach, you see, High Court and Supreme Court.
There should be a corrective measure taken immediately so that it doesn't recur. After all, it is the litigant who comes to the court. If his faith is shaken in the judicial system by the incidents as reported in the news today, the judicial system will collapse.
Let's open this up. The guests need no introduction. Aman Lekhi, Taruna Nandi, Hitesh Jain, Nalin Kohli, Majid Memon, people of repute. Let me begin by asking my first question to Ms. Nandi. What do you make of what we've seen today? Are you surprised?
I think all of us were shocked when we heard what we heard. And there was the way the things have unfolded through the day have also been actually fairly dramatic. In the morning, you had the news come out, then you had the announcement of the transfer, and then you had the fire chief saying that in fact there was no recovery, and then we hear in the press note from the court that the transfer had nothing to do with the alleged recovery. So we are in a position today that we don't know what happened. Was the money planted, or was there in fact a recovery from the judge's residence? So this is a very, very important point that we are at. And a robust and transparent investigation must happen. And I am by no means saying that it should not happen under the aegis of the Supreme Court or the Delhi High Court Chief Justice. It must. But measures of transparency may be taken, like involving two outside people or placing before, once the investigation is done, placing the report, making it public, or similar measures.
Now, Aman Lekhi, sir, you've been the former Additional Solicitor General. Part of the system, so to say.
No.
When cases like this come to fore, the faith of the public is shaken, sir. What would you tell the viewers who are watching this broadcast? How should they see this case?
Well, corruption and culpability are both self-evident in what we have seen. It is also quite clear that there is utter disgrace, dishonor, and ignominy for the legal system. What is of extreme importance here is that the power of a judiciary lies in the confidence of the people in its efficacy. And where the conduct of a judge who's supposed to be beyond reproach seems to be in some way debased, then this belief in the justice system collapses. When the belief in the justice system collapses, it doesn't augur well for the polity. Because in that event, there is no one to rein in the executive, or for that matter, to control the legislature. And that will shake the foundation of the whole legal system. The way in which we have devised our procedure is on the assumption that judges will not behave like this. That's the reason why we have a very cumbersome procedure for impeachment, and we do not have any ordinary method of dealing with offenses not grave enough for impeachment, because it is assumed that the moral fiber of the judge would be the biggest restraint. Now, when the moral fiber seems to be collapsing and the restraint which is supposed to be presumed is non-existent, then the system which exists is inadequate to deal with it, because impeachment is in some way cumbersome, the in-house procedure is opaque, and the reluctance to involve the police is self-evident. You said very clearly at the beginning, why should there be double standards for the judge? And not just for a judge, why should there be double standards for anyone in authority, from the Prime Minister downwards? No double standards. We are a polity which governs the rule of law, and everyone is under the rule of law. And I personally feel, as you correctly pointed out, this is a 3 or 4 day incident. We need to know why. Why? Because it should have been immediately informed to the Delhi Chief Justice, should have been known to the Chief Justice of India. What happened in the interregnum? Why is it that we have to wait a report in the newspaper for sudden action to come in? And suddenly we have this particular enigmatic report from the Supreme Court saying we are transferring not because of this. We don't know what was the reason for that particular transfer. And it was just fortuitous it happened at the same time. So there are more questions than there are answers. And it doesn't in any way present the system in a good light.
Hitesh Jain, let me begin by asking you straight up the core of what the SC is arguing in his statement. They are saying that transfer and this case may not be linked or are not linked. Even if they are not linked, why think of transfer when the judge is under the scanner?
Well, according to me, there is a larger issue. When does the independence of judiciary starts and where does the accountability ends? If you look at the chronology of the event, last evening, we saw some tweets which came in the public domain that the certain particular judge is being transferred. Today morning, we read the news report why he was being transferred and all. Apparently, there have been a lot of rumors regarding what is the amount of cash that was found. We have no clue till date what is the amount. When did the incident take place? Now you look at the statement of the fire department also, they are also contradicting the report and all, we don't know. So what is this all being, what are we getting? Completely opaqueness, there is no transparency. This is an inquiry that should have been done. It is such a grave matter where the inquiry should have completed within 48 hours. And instead of rumors being circulated, where Supreme Court themselves said that there is a lot of misinformation being circulated, they themselves should have come out with a proper statement. But the reluctance to come out with the proper details, the reluctance to follow the procedure. And that is the reason people are questioning the system. And as Mr. Lekhi also said, the system has collapsed right from this whole collegium system, the appointment of judges, the inquiry, and also as regards disclosure of assets. If you will look at the website, how many judges have disclosed the assets? So all these questions are very relevant questions. And definitely this is a time when people are going to demand the accountability.
No, you're absolutely right. That page about asset declaration is completely blank. The last I checked, that page is blank. No exceptions. I don't know, whether that has been updated or not. But even if it has been, just tells you the the reluctance to be transparent. That's really at the heart of it. And thank you for underlining it. Nalin Kohli, a lot has been said about the collegium system. How does this incident reflect on the integrity of the judiciary?
You've asked actually 3 questions, so let me break it down one by one and answer them separately. Obviously, if there is any report of or any information or news information or report with regard to any allegation of malpractice or corruption of anyone holding a high office, whether it is in politics, the bureaucracy, any other institution, public office, or the judiciary, it's disconcerting, and it certainly is at one level disheartening, because it cannot be seen as a comment on the entire system. Because after all, in every system, including the judiciary, there are people who are working tirelessly morning to evening and honestly discharging their duties and churning out judgments to ensure justice is dispensed. The second part of what you're asking is in terms of does it raise a question on the collegium system? That's another issue altogether. This is not a question on the collegium system. What is flowing from the collegium's decision, that has to be noted, is that they immediately have issued orders of transfer of Justice Verma back to Allahabad. Now, we must bear in mind that Allahabad is the parent high court of Justice Verma. So, in a sense, he's being reverted back to from where he was transferred to Delhi. The third is the collegium system, or the collegium of the Honorable Supreme Court, immediately acted when the information reached, as it has been reported in the media. Chief Justice Sanjeev Khanna, and then there's Justice Gavai, Justice Suryakant, Justice Oak, and Justice Vikram Nath. The collegium met and they took the first decision, which is in terms of the transfer. Now, there is already a system in place by the Supreme Court. If I recall, it goes back to 99. Wherein there will be an inquiry to ascertain the facts. Obviously, Justice Verma will have an opportunity to put his position and his point of view. Then at the end of that, there would be a point which would arise that is there an exoneration, a case of exoneration in favor of any such person who's being inquired into?
That statement from the Supreme Court has come only today, just a few hours ago. Why didn't we know? You know, that's the question.
Under Article 124.218, Article 124.4 applies to Supreme Court judges, and Article 218 applies to High Court judges, where Parliament can remove a judge. So I think that's the entirety of the picture that is before us. I don't think we should mix up the issues and then raise this to a question on the collegium system.
There is no mixing up. There is no mixing up. Mr. Lekhi, before I bring in Mr. Majid Memon, sir, what explains the delay of this press note that we have from the Supreme Court? Why couldn't the Delhi High Court, if it was aware, have released a statement earlier? Why didn't we know? Had this not appeared in the media, we would never have known.
No, absolutely. There's absolutely. I will not be as indulgent as my dear friend Nalin is. And as far as these questions are concerned, I think they require more honest, brutal, and critical examination. And they are uncomfortable questions. That doesn't necessarily mean you avoid them and we provide justifications from them. As far as this issue is concerned, yes, there has been a delay. We need to know the reasons for that particular delay. And the very fact, the procedure, the system which Nalin is talking about means that the procedure system should be effective and should work in a manner that is contemplated. And you raised a very pertinent point that if this has happened, this should have, insofar as what the procedure activating itself is concerned, it should have activated itself at the right time. And we need to know as to how is it that has worked. So coming back to your question, was there a delay? Yes. And what is the reason for the delay? We should wait for the answers. But question is, the fact that there's a bit of a delay itself raises the questions.
Karuna Nandi, I have with me some rulings of the Supreme Court. Now, in the bulldozer justice case, the Supreme Court said the greater the power to decide, higher is the responsibility to be just and fair. Should it not apply to the Supreme Court? In the electoral bonds judgment, the court noted it is the role of citizens to hold the state accountable for its actions and inactions, and they must possess information about the state action for them to accomplish this role effectively. But people were not informed about the case, the details, or what happened. Then the court had said that it recognized accountability and transparency of governance as important features of democratic governance. Then why this lack of profound, for lack of a better word, non-communication or lack of transparency?
When you say that be you ever so high, you are not beyond the law, you are absolutely right. At the same time, one must recognize, and the entire polity must recognize, that judges are in an unenviable position, right? Many of us, many people I'm sure on this panel, many people beyond, would have not or would not take up the position because it entails a more limited remuneration. It entails long hours with much less staff, and you also honestly lose your friends, right? You have to make decisions. Sometimes they are popular, sometimes they are unpopular. Very frequently, it's one side is always unhappy. So therefore, we must absolutely keep in mind that the discipline that we have with regard to the kind of rigor that we expect of this investigation is innocent until proven guilty, and I'm extremely unhappy with members of the panel who are presuming the guilt when the Delhi fire chief has come and said that there was nothing recovered there. I am going to say one thing, and I'm going to say it very clearly. That the
Ms.
rigor
Gandhi, no
of
one here on the
this
panel is presuming,
investigation-
no, 1 minute. I think, you've got the arguments wrong. I'm sorry to say this, but no one here is pronouncing or declaring anyone guilty. Ms. Nandi, that's not our case. We are only, at least I am of the opinion, and I can speak for Mr. Lekhi and Hitesh Jain, who've spoken, that look, we are only asking one fundamental question. If you were involved, or if, God forbid if this was found at my home, I would not be here anchoring the show.
100%. Please give me 10 seconds. When we have the vice president of this country coming in, right, and Mr. Jain as well as Mr. Lekhi are BJP spokespersons, official BJP spokespersons.
No, that's not fair, Taruna Nandi. That's not fair. Please. They are advocates of repute, ma'am. Let's not. No, 1 minute. Let's not do this. Mr. Lekhi is objecting to it. Please.
Yeah, well, I don't know. This is very strange. First, she digresses from the topic. Then she indulges in a straw man argument. She is basically coming here to basically position herself in a manner to please a particular section. The question here is not how acceptable we are to judges of the fraternity. The question here is whether the issue which is raised requires answers. Now, as far as this question is concerned, either, of course, she was mentally absent when I was speaking. I was not talking about guilt or innocence. I was talking about the method which has to be followed. So instead of assuming that I gave a clean chit, I am no one to give a clean chit, and I'm really not bothered what Karuna Nandi actually thinks. I'm not bothered about that. You put to me a question, I answered it, and it actually doesn't behove a responsible lawyer like her to bring issues that are completely extraneous to this issue.
And let's not trivialize this by saying, someone is from BJP or the Congress is part of a larger ecosystem. Miss Nandi, let's not go there, please. It's just unfair to the... No, 1 minute, ma'am. Ma'am, spare a thought for the viewers, ma'am. This is something serious. It concerns everyone, ma'am. Everyone. People of all society, all states, all strata. Please. Let's bring in Mr. Memon. Mr. Memon, you are a doyen of the bar, sir. Do you suspect a cover-up here?
Absolutely. See, this fire officer coming forward on the television and saying, I did not see any cash. What does this mean? What is happening? This is creating unnecessary controversy, unnecessary fear in the minds of the people with regard to the fairness of the likely probe. I'm afraid that, who will bail the cat? Who will judge the judges? No, these are all questions which we have been, talking about for years. And then whenever the question arises about collegium or about the inquiry by the in-house committee, etc.
No, Mr. Memon, you said you are afraid. I am afraid that Miss Nandi will now paint you as BJP spokesperson because you are saying that this is a cover-up. Karuna Nandi, Mr. Majid Memon is very far from, even being close to the BJP.
Absolutely. Look, what Mr. Memon is saying, I think, is a very important point. Because when you have such serious allegations, right, if they are true, then a transfer is not enough. There's no question about that. And if there are false, then the falsity of those allegations must be investigated, and those who are making these false allegations should be criminally prosecuted. Right? So who will, as he said, who will bail the cat? So there are systems that have been proposed in the past. There's the National Judicial Accountability, there's the NJAC, right? However, the NJAC in its current form, and this is being pushed very, very, very hard by the ruling dispensation, has a government veto. Now, if you have the government veto, the state, the government and the judiciary collapses into one.
No, but why are we confusing issues? I don't know. It is such a straightforward question that we're discussing. Why the lack of transparency? Why the delay in total disclosure? These are fundamental questions. I don't know what you're trying to say. Frankly, ma'am, I haven't understood the meat of your arguments. But Hitesh Jain, can you comprehend what Ms. Nandi is saying?
Well, I do not comprehend anything about what Ms. Nandi wants to say, but I think what we were talking about accountability and transparency. The point we were making is if there is a misinformation and if Supreme Court feels there is a misinformation or the system feels the rumor is being spread, the onus is upon them to state the facts properly. The problem is, as I mentioned, you look at the chronology. Yesterday, some news comes about the transfer. Today, there is a news about the transfer linked to the incident of fire. Then you have the fire department telling no cash was found. Now, and this is an incident that has gone to 10 days. The fact is they have accepted that there is an inquiry going on. Obviously, the inquiry is going on for some reason. Now, if the inquiry is going on for some reason, there needs to be an official statement. Why is there opaqueness about the procedure, about what is going on? I mean, we were getting the information in such a piecemeal. Right. Obviously, people are going to spread misinformation, rumors. People are talking about different numbers. And as I mentioned before, it is not about the judge. It is not about this thing, but it is about the confidence of people in the judiciary. And when we are talking about the transparency and the opaqueness, I don't think anyone on this panel will disagree with this fact. The fact is now, as NJAC is concerned, NJAC has been thrown outside of the window by the Supreme Court itself. Right. So there has been no NJAC for the last 6 years. The people who opposed the NJAC, the late Mr. Fadil Nariman, he also believed that Collegium is wrong. Right. And there should have been an NJAC. Right. So, I mean, like, you know, there have been different answers. Well, we are not discussing about the NJAC today, but certainly people are definitely discussing as to where does the accountability begin.
Right. Let me bring in Mr. Lekhi. Mr. Lekhi, you know, I want to ask you this finally, that do you suspect an attempt to muddy the waters?
Muddy the waters?
I mean, of course, any incident that raises questions of impropriety in any manner, and financial impropriety is a very serious allegation of impropriety, will lead to questions being asked on the credibility not just of the person, but also the system. But in the system, then the larger question that will flow and would require some kind of assessment is, well, number one, that there is, who are the people who are in touch with such people or judges who get compromised or who are in this position. So, you know, it's a larger question and it must be addressed.
Mr. Lekhi, what are your views, sir? Would you like to answer that question? Is there an attempt by, I don't know, you know, I don't want to say vested interest, etc., etc. I'm not getting there, but...
Muddy the waters in what way? The waters are already muddied. They can't be muddied more. I mean, what more do you need to muddy the water? We have nothing but mud right now, not even water. So in place of water, we have mud. And what we are going to do with the mud, I mean, right now it's all coated all over us because we are part of the sprinkler system. So there's no question of whether there's muddy water at all or not. It's all around us right now. I mean, right now, it's, I think, and with people, when instead of dealing with Karuna Nandi, people instead of confronting this saying, okay, he's the BJP, he's the Congress fellow, with this kind of mindset, I don't think the waters will ever be unmuddied.
That's not the right thing to say, you know, on part of Ms. Nandi, but... you know, I thank all of you for joining us. Hopefully, we'll have more answers than questions in the next few hours, days. I don't know when. But this is certainly about people, principles, and the system. Let's move on.